In a world where everyone uses magic in their daily lives, we see a ridiculously strong boy in the forest. His name is Mash, and his existence defies the natural order in the world. He lives in a hut with his father Burndead, where they enjoy their lives in isolation. When Mash goes home, he ends up breaking the door, forgetting if it was a push or pull. This makes Burndead upset, but Mash apologizes, promising to fix it. He tries to put it back, but he just pounds it against the door frame, making the damage even worse. After that, they have tea together, and we learn that Mash is different from other people, because he can't use magic, so Burndead has been trying to make his body stronger to make up for it, but Mash doesn't know this, so he continues to wonder why his training is purely physical. Burndead heads out, but warns Mash not to venture into the city while he's gone, but after his father leaves, he immediately runs to the city wearing a cloak, wanting to try a limited edition cream puff from the bakery. He walks around the city, where he sees the people using magic, but he thinks that it's nothing special, because the things they do with magic can also be done with their hands. Mash reaches the bakery and becomes excited, ordering some cream puffs. But as he pays, all the coins are bent, because he had clenched his fist when he had gotten too excited. But the baker thinks that the coins shouldn't be bent so easily. Mash fixes them up, straightening them to their original form, and the baker freaks out. After a while, Mash gets his food, but the winds blow, revealing his face to the public, and everyone is surprised because he doesn't have any marks on his face. Meanwhile, we see an officer named Brad at the police station. He reads a newspaper about this year's Divine Visionary, a title given to the top student of the Magic Academy, which also comes with a number of promotions and rewards. The phone rings, and he is informed about a man walking around the city with no mark on his face. As Mash walks around the streets, he wonders why everyone is staring at him, but he just eats his cream puffs. He bumps into a drunk officer named Terry, messing up his uniform with some of the cream and making him upset. Terry knocks the food off his hands as he continues to run his mouth. Mash rips off the officer's uniform, but he actually has good intentions, telling Terry that he will wash it up for him. At that moment, Brad arrives, asking Terry why he's naked. He looks at Mash, thinking that he is the man mentioned in the report, so he approaches him, but Burndead arrives, grabbing his son and running away, while Brad summons a magical bird to go after them. When they return home, Burndead scolds his son for going into the city despite his warning. Burndead forgives him in the end, but he punishes Mash by making him repeat his workout routine. As Mash leaves the house to train, Burndead thinks that Mash is actually a good kid, and he can't blame him for wanting to go to the city, because he has spent his entire life hiding in the forest. Burndead thinks about how to deal with the police when he sees Brad's bird watching him from his window. Brad suddenly arrives with his men, asking Burndead where his son is. We see Mash training in the woods, lifting the weight like it's nothing, and completing his workout in 5 minutes. He heads back home, but just as he is about to open the door, he hears Brad as he explains that magic has flourished, because they have gotten rid of all the people who can't use magic, calling it a necessary sacrifice for a better world. Brad pushes Burndead, telling him that sheltering the unmarked is a serious offense, but Burndead refuses to tell them about his son's whereabouts. In a flashback, we learn that Burndead has always been treated as a failure in everything that he does. This goes on until adulthood, and he thinks about taking his own life, when suddenly, he hears a baby Mash crying. He realizes that the baby was abandoned because he had no mark, thinking that they are both unwanted by society, so he decides to raise the baby as his own. Back in the present, Burndead screams at Mash to run, so Brad starts beating him up, but just as he is about to finish him off, Mash bursts through the door, hitting one of the officers, and blowing him away. Terry goes to him, but Mash rips his uniform off, slapping him repeatedly until he falls to the ground. Mash reveals that he didn't run because Burndead is his only family, but Brad laughs at him, thinking that he has no chance because he can't use magic. He attacks Mash with the spell he used to drive away a dragon, but Mash easily deflects it with one hand, and Brad can't believe his eyes. He follows up with an even stronger spell, but Mash slaps it away, causing it to explode elsewhere. Terry continues to attack Mash with his magic, while Mash deflects his attacks, and it looks like he's having fun. He takes his father's wand, while Brad defends himself with a barrier, thinking Mash is about to use magic, but Mash throws the wand at Brad, breaking his barrier and causing him to fall to his knees. Mash threatens to kill him the next time he threatens his family, but Brad proposes a deal where Mash will enroll in a magic academy and become a divine visionary so that society will accept him, saying that he will back Mash up because he wants the reward that comes with it. He claims that if they don't accept his deal, they'll be hunted down for the rest of their lives, so Mash agrees to the deal. Mash goes to the prestigious Easton Magic Academy with a fake mark on his face, where he will take the entrance exam that is notoriously difficult, with a passing rate of less than 3%. A man named Lucci looks at the applicants gathered on the field, recognizing some of their faces, when he suddenly hears a loud noise, and he sees Mash lifting weights like it's paper, making him confused because that is not the place for him to work out. Lucci calms himself down, looking at the field again, where he sees Mash reading a fitness book while doing the invisible chair, and he even notices Brad and Bernadette behind him, who are trying to keep an eye on Mash. Lucci appears with style, announcing that he will oversee the exam. The students are stunned, because they recognize him as an extremely gifted mage. Lucci is flattered, but Mash comments on his unnecessarily flashy entrance, making Lucci want to fail him. Lucci announces that the first exam is about to begin, ordering everyone to take a seat, as he uses a spell to prepare the venue for everyone, making everyone amazed. But Mash is not impressed, telling him that he could have just taken them to a room where everything was already prepared, and this makes Lucci hate him even more. The exam begins, as the applicants check their papers, but the questions move around the page, making it difficult to read. We learn that Lucci enchanted the papers with magic, so they need to dispel the magic to pass the test. Brad and Bernadette think Mash is doomed, but Mash orders the words to stop moving around, as he crushes his pen, causing the words to arrange themselves out of fear. He finishes the test early, and Lucci is surprised to see that everything is so perfectly aligned. Mash continues to use his superhuman abilities to pass the other parts of the exam, making everyone surprised, while Lucci thinks of a way to eliminate him. Lucci causes a maze to appear from the ground, giving the examinees 30 minutes to reach the goal. A girl named Lemon approaches Mash, wanting to tag along with him, so they start walking together, but she keeps on falling for the traps, and Mash realizes that she is useless. While his back is turned, she uses a spell to restrain him with cuffs, telling him that there is a reason why she needs to keep him away from the goal. But Mash easily breaks free and dashes off, because he also has his reasons to pass the test. After he leaves, a creature approaches Lemon, asking her a riddle, but she fails to answer it, so it attacks her, but Mash punches the creature, knocking it out with a single punch. Lemon wonders why he saved her, and Mash explains that they must be there for a similar reason, so he feels sorry for her. She is worried that they won't be able to complete the maze in time, but Mash has a plan. Meanwhile, Lucci is confident that Mash is going to fail, but the ground suddenly starts shaking as they hear loud noises. The wall breaks as Mash joins them, and we learn that he just destroyed the maze to create a path. The other successful examinees call him a cheater, telling him to go home, but Lemon tells them that it wasn't Mash's fault, confessing that Lucci promised to get her into the school if she stopped Mash. Lucci admits to this, saying that he doesn't like Mash as he unleashes his magical powers. He tells them that he will fail Mash and Lemon, asking them if they want to challenge his decision. But Mash crushes Lucci's wand with his fist, as he tells the professor that he has gone too far. At that moment, the headmaster Wahlberg arrives, informing them that the final interview is about to begin, and that he will now be acting as the examiner. Mash is the first applicant to be interviewed, so he is taken to a room where he is surrounded by school officials. He is asked a few questions, and the officials don't seem to like his answers. However, the headmaster finds him interesting, asking him why he saved the girl in the maze even though he didn't have enough time left. Mash tells him that he had a feeling that he would regret not saving her, and Wahlberg realizes that Mash is the type to act before thinking, explaining that there are creatures stronger than him, and he wonders if Mash would act that way if faced with such a creature. Wahlberg uses his magic to summon a large creature that threatens to harm a doll, which contains the soul of the person that is dearest to Mash, who is obviously burned dead. Mash tries to stop it by punching it, but it does nothing, and his hand starts bleeding. The school officials are surprised when he uses his hands to stop the blade from reaching the doll. He knows that the creature will eventually disappear, intending to outlast it. Wahlberg realizes that Mash is someone who can protect the weak and regulate the strong, so he recalls the creature and lights up the place, revealing that Mash was just being tested, as he welcomes him to the Easton Magic Academy. Later on, we see them in class, where they learn the lock opening spell, which is considered to be basic. The teacher demonstrates it, but Mash just uses his hands to destroy the lock, making the teacher angry because he didn't even use magic. Mash explains that he is not good with magic, while the boy next to him, Finn, starts seeing him as a troublemaker. After class, Finn looks for his dorm, hoping Mash is not going to be his roommate. He finds his room, but the door is missing, and he sees Mash holding onto it, making him realize that they are going to be sharing the room. They get to know each other, and Finn starts to think that Mash is just a normal guy, but he suddenly introduces Finn to his muscles, making him think he is a weirdo. Mash asks Finn if he can borrow his broom for the next class, since he brought a giant plant root instead, thinking it was a broom. Finn allows it, and the next day, the teacher trains them to fly with the broom. Mash tries to do it, but the broom won't respond to him, so he gets ridiculed by a student, saying that he's slowing the class down. But Mash stomps his foot, and causes the broom to fly into his hand. The student calls him a cheater, saying he didn't use magic, as the teacher announces a time trial to see how fast the students can fly with their brooms. The guy challenges Mash to a race, where the loser must obey the winner until they graduate. Mash accepts the challenge, so they prepare to race. The instructor doubts Mash can even ride his broom, but she begins the race anyway, and Mash ends up winning instantly, setting a new world record with his speed. Everyone is confused, because they didn't even see Mash move, but Finn saw Mash throw the broom forward, and jump towards it, allowing him to ride it while it was in midair. The student accuses Mash of cheating, and he takes pity on him, so he drops the bet. The guy continues to run his mouth, but it gets stitched shut as a student named Cavill makes his entrance. He apologizes on his friend's behalf, but everyone knows that Cavill is a troublemaker, so they are worried about Mash, thinking he has just become a target. Cavill introduces himself to Mash, but Mash mishears his name as Cabbage, making everyone fall silent. Cavill prepares to cast a spell, but the teacher interrupts, reminding them that they are in the middle of class. So Cavill tells him to meet him after class, and he leaves the scene. As they make their way back to their room, Finn reveals that Cavill is the son of a high-ranking member at the Bureau of Magic. He adds that Mash will get expelled if he messes with Cavill, since his family has close ties with the vice principal, and Finn has actually seen students suffer because of Cavill, so he understands why everyone is scared of him. Mash starts baking cream puffs on his own, enjoying the experience, while Cavill is waiting for him at the field, and becomes upset that Mash isn't showing up. The next day, Mash takes out his book for his next class, but it's in terrible condition. Cavill approaches him, asking him why he didn't show up, and Mash apologizes, saying he was too busy making cream puffs, which seems to annoy Cavill. Cavill asks him if he wants to become the Divine Visionary, claiming that he can help Mash achieve his goal by using his connection with the vice principal if Mash will follow his orders. Mash immediately agrees to this, and he turns into Cavill's lapdog, following his every order as part of the deal. Mash prepares for his next class, but he realizes that his book about the subject is also in bad shape. Finn reluctantly agrees to share his book, and Mash thinks he is lucky to have a friend like Finn. Mash gives Cavill some water, but he pours it on the floor, ordering Mash to clean it up. As Mash cleans the floor, it's revealed that Cavill was ordering Finn to tamper with Mash's books, but he is getting bored, so he wants Finn to burn Mash's clothes. Finn refuses to obey, so Cavill uses his magic to bring Finn to his knees and beat him up. After some time, Mash arrives at the scene, asking Cavill what he's doing. Cavill claims he just wants to get an apology from Finn, who starts crying as he confesses that he ruined Mash's books under Cavill's orders, apologizing for his actions. Cavill asks Mash if he wants to have dinner with the vice principal, but Mash goes to him and bashes his head against the floor, instantly knocking him out. Finn tells Mash that he is going to get expelled, making him realize that he is in trouble. The vice principal Farman suddenly arrives, revealing that Cavill's father entrusted him to look after his son. Farman witnessed the entire incident, but he calls it a violent attack against Cavill, so he is going to hold a school conference to discuss what they just did. He mentions that their status is different from Cavill, so he deserves special treatment, even calling them idiots. As he continues to run his mouth, Mash rushes over to him, landing a knee strike on his face, while the others watch in horror. Mash explains that since Farman isn't open to reason, it would make sense to beat him up, since he is already in trouble anyway. Farman threatens to expel him as he tries to cast a spell, but Mash slaps dirt on his face. He digs a hole in the ground, slamming Farman into the hole, and he proceeds to cover it up. Farman warns Mash that he won't get away with this, but Mash threatens to bury him alive. After that, he is summoned by the headmaster, who tells him that he just received a notice from the Bureau of Magic to have him expelled. We learn that the Bureau of Magic is the highest legal authority in the land, and the divine visionaries produced by the Academy are at its core. He reminds Mash about Cavill's status, but he burns the notice because he doesn't want good people to be put at a disadvantage. Wahlberg rants about the current status of the world, since it only serves the elites. He thinks that it needs more people like Mash, who are willing to sacrifice themselves to do the right thing, and he even wants Mash to become a divine visionary someday. Mash mentions how he plans to become one, so the headmaster explains the way to become one, but Mash can't handle all the information. So Wahlberg decides to keep it simple, telling him that he just needs to earn high marks and acquire as many coins as possible. He assures Mash that he will take care of the bureau and the vice principal, and Mash takes his leave. The next day, the captain of the Duello team, Tom, invites him to represent their dorm in a game, which is basically like Quidditch from Harry Potter. Mash says that he can't ride a broom, but Tom doesn't believe him, dragging him into the team. During the match, the enemy grabs possession of the ball, and Mash is still on the ground, as he reiterates that he can't ride a broom. The crowd thinks that he isn't even trying, so they jeer at him, throwing things at him. His team is getting wrecked, and Tom goes to him, explaining the rules of the game. We learn that they need to pass the ball through the enemy's ring to earn points, and the use of magic is forbidden, since the game is all about broom technique. Tom is about to get back to the game, when the enemy captain intentionally bumps into him, causing him to fall. Mash checks up on him, and Tom seems to have broken some bones, asking the enemy captain about his sense of sportsmanship. But the enemy captain doesn't care, revealing that winning is all that matters to him. Before getting back into the game, Tom knows that their team is about to lose, but he tells Mash that winning isn't everything, and that giving one's best is even more important. They are 50 points behind, making the enemy captain think that they are about to win, but they seem to have enraged Mash, who grabs onto his broom and jumps into the air. He maintains his altitude by rapidly kicking around, leaving the spectators confused. He gains possession of the ball, while the enemy team charges toward him, but he uses his inhuman strength to throw the ball, blowing them away and scoring a point. The crowd is surprised as the ball circles around, returning to Mash like a boomerang. He keeps repeating the same move to score more points, while everyone watches on in disbelief. Their score eventually reaches 999, making them the winners, and the Academy recognizes their score as a record, and they are given silver coins as a reward. Finn thinks his performance was incredible, but Mash doesn't want to play that game again, while Tom gives him a hug, as he thanks him for helping the team win. Later, we see a student named Lance reading a newspaper, where he learns about Mash's achievement. He recognizes Mash from the entrance exam, destroying his picture as he makes Mash's next target. During his class, Tom pesters him into practicing for their game, while Lemon wants to study with him, but Mash isn't interested in spending time with them. At that moment, Lance appears, and Lemon recognizes him as the student who topped the entrance exam. Lance wants to do something fun, pulling out a special magical tool and opening it, causing Mash's friends to disappear, as they are trapped inside of the bottle. Lance tells Mash to go to the forest if he wants them back, and then disappears. They meet at the forest, where Lance reveals he is also collecting coins, showing 2 silver coins. We learn that most people only have one magic line on their face, but there are rare cases when a person has more magic lines, indicating that they have greater magical power. Lance challenges Mash to a duel, where they each bet 1 silver coin, and Mash accepts the duel, so Lance pulls out his wand, using a spell to prepare the area for their duel. After he has cleared the area, Mash tries to attack him with his fists, but Lance uses a gravity spell to slam him to the ground. Mash struggles as he tries to stand, while Lance tells him that no human can withstand his spell, but Mash punches through the ground, pulling out giant roots and splitting the earth beneath his opponent, driving him back. Lance lands on his knees, stunned by Mash's ridiculous power, as Mash dashes towards him. Lance tries to stop Mash with the same gravity spell, but Mash uses his speed to escape and tries to punch him, but Lance narrowly dodges his attacks. His necklace falls to the ground, and Mash picks it up out of curiosity. He opens it up, revealing the picture of Lance's sister, and Lance confesses that he has a sister complex, telling Mash to give it back. Lance asks him what is the most important thing in the world. Mash tries to answer cream puffs, but Lance tells him he is wrong, and the only correct answer is his little sister, making Mash think that he's a creep. Lance threatens to drop his friends down the cliff, claiming that he will use them to help him win the match. In a flashback, we learn that Lance's sister is suffering from an incurable disease that will strip her of her magical powers, and without them, she will have to be taken out, because magicless people have no right to live in their world, so Lance wants to become a divine visionary to save his sister from the system. Back in the present, Lance drops the bottle, using a magic spell to accelerate its descent, but Mash changes into his workout gear. He gets into starting position and dashes forward, moving so fast that he disappears before his enemy's eyes. Lance tries to look for him, and Mash suddenly appears behind him. He can't believe that Mash managed to recover the bottle so quickly, thinking he must be using magic, but Mash is no longer interested in fighting, because he knows that Lance is not a bad guy, pointing out that the bottle he dropped was empty. He rushes towards Lance, managing to grab the real bottle, and he frees his friends. Lance concedes the duel, handing over his silver coin before leaving. As he walks away, Mash realizes that Lance is actually a pretty good guy, and his friends surround him, thanking him for saving them. We learn that there are 3 dorms at the academy that divide the students based on their characteristics. There's Mash's dorm Adler, which represents courage, the Orca dorm for wisdom, and the Lang dorm for ambition, with the 3 dorms having a rivalry between them at the academy. Mash puts together his silver coins, and we learn that 5 silver coins are equivalent to 1 gold coin. He relaxes with Finn, who suddenly starts to panic because they haven't done their potions assignment. Lance shows up, calling them slackers for forgetting the assignment, worrying they are going to ruin their dorm's reputation. But Mash uses his necklace against him, and just seeing his little sister blows him away and knocks him out cold. He ends up deciding to help them, revealing a screaming mandrake used for the assignment, a plant that becomes a useful ingredient after it is silenced. He shows them the spell to put it asleep, and tells them to give it a shot. Finn tries out the spell, but he fails to put it to sleep. Mash comments that it's because his core muscles are too weak, but when Mash tries out the spell, his mandrake starts freaking out instead. Lance gives Finn some pointers, telling him to focus his magic on a single point, and Finn manages to put his mandrake to sleep. But meanwhile, Mash's mandrake has become huge, going on a rampage, but Mash just gives it a slap and knocks it out. Lance moves on to preparing the mandrake, saying it's pretty easy, showing them how it's done, cooking it up, and creating a potion. Finn thinks it's not easy at all, but Mash is confident, saying it's no problem since it doesn't require any magic. So he repeats the steps that Lance showed him, but he ends up making a cream puff instead. Lance thinks he is messing around, so he watches Mash and guides him step by step, but it still turns out as a cream puff, which leaves Lance completely confused. And despite all his attempts, it always comes out as a cream puff, but they are actually pretty good. We see Headmaster Wahlberg as he thinks about the upcoming cross-dorm, off-campus class, wondering if Mash will be okay. We see a student named Barrett as he bumps into some other students. They tell him off, but he ends up beating them all up, and he calls them side characters. Meanwhile at the Lang dorm, they think that those who ruled should have overwhelming power, thinking that the Adler dorm is unworthy, so the leader orders for them to take all of the coins from the Adler students. The next day, the Lang and Adler dorms have a joint class in the forest. Mash wonders what they will be doing for the class, and they notice Barrett, who makes a racket about how he is the main character. Mash thinks he is weird, but Barrett thinks he is a side character, looking at his appearance. But Lemon arrives, asking Mash if she can tag along with him. Barrett gets annoyed and spits on Mash. He starts freaking out about how he is getting attention from a girl, thinking that it's because of people like him that he can't get a girl himself, wanting to join the bureau so he can get rid of all the hot guys in the world. But the group just ignores him, and he gets even more annoyed. However, the professor appears, explaining their next class. They are tasked with taking out forest scorpions and retrieving the stone from their heads. Regular stones are worth a bronze coin, but the stronger scorpions have a square stone, which is worth a silver coin. The professor sends them off, and Mash is aiming for a silver coin. He is suddenly approached by a student named Silva, who witnessed his feat during his duello match, but reminds him he is nothing as he attacks Mash with a pillar of iron. The professor breaks things up, and Silva claims they were just messing around. Mash glares at him, but Lance ends up stopping him, revealing that Silva is actually a year older than them, but since he was a troublemaker, he was held back for a year. Lance warns him to avoid Silva, but Mash is just glad his cream puff didn't get squished. They head into the forest, and Lance thinks they should work together, but Mash disappears because he happened to zone out. He runs into Barrett, who starts freaking out, but he just slaps him. Barrett wants to fight him, but they suddenly hear a scream as we see a girl being attacked by another student. She cries for help, and there is an explosion that defeats the boy. The girl thanks Barrett for saving her, and he starts to freak out. He tries to act cool, but when she grabs his hand, he starts to lose it. Meanwhile, we see a defeated scorpion, as it seems Silva has already obtained a square stone, but it seems there is something else he is after. The girl thanks Barrett once again, and their knees touch. Barrett is overwhelmed, and starts slamming his head into the ground. But we learn that the girl is using magic to charm him, magic that makes anyone who finds her attractive to fall madly in love with her. She tries to work her magic on Mash, but he says he didn't really do anything. The girl is shocked her magic isn't working on him, so she tries to use more energy, grabbing his hand, but it still has no effect on him, leaving her devastated. Barrett wonders about her situation, and the girl explains she is being threatened by Silva, who is forcing her to use her unique magic. Barrett swears to help her, and at that moment, they are suddenly attacked, and Silva appears. Barrett decides to fight him to help the girl. He attacks with a barrage of fireballs, ending things with a giant explosion. Meanwhile, we see Finn and Lemon clinging onto Lance as they cry for help, but he wonders if Mash is okay, since he is being targeted by Silva. Barrett thinks he has won, but as the smoke clears, we see that Silva protected himself with his iron. He attacks Barrett with his pillar, and knocks Mash's cream puff out of his hand. Silva continues to taunt them to fight him, while Mash is just stunned by the loss of his cream puff. Barrett starts to get worried, thinking there is a big difference in their magic power. He thinks Mash is no use, so he thinks it's all up to him to save the girl. Silva starts taunting him, saying his magic was weak and calling him a letdown. So he decides to give them a chance, saying if he can take 5 of his attacks, he will leave the girl alone, even wagering a silver coin in accordance with the rules of the academy. The girl thinks it's a ridiculous deal, saying he could get seriously injured, but Barrett accepts it, thinking he can withstand 5 hits. However, Silva says that Mash is also a part of it, so he also needs to agree. Barrett says Mash isn't involved, but Silva insists that he is, so Barrett decides to take on all 10 attacks to cover for Mash. Silva thinks he is mad, and he starts attacking with his Iron Fist spell. Barrett is brought to his knees after just 1 attack, but he manages to get back up. Silva keeps on attacking with his spell, and Barrett is continuously slammed by the iron pillars, while the girl and Mash watch on. After 9 attacks, Barrett is still standing, thinking about how the girl cried for his help. Silva prepares an extra strong attack for the final blow. The attack lands, and Barrett is knocked out. Silva